car that rewrote the rulebook on what a supercar can be.
As far as I'm concerned, this car is almost without fault.
A machine that will be remembered as the shining star amongst turbochargers and electrified cruisers. It was cool enough for Iron Man and quick enough to take down Godzilla himself in the sprint to 60. It's timeless. And it's the very last of its kind. It's the Audi R8, and this is the death of a legend. Let's go. This is the R8 GT. And before you assume it's just a slightly more powerful, slightly more special version of a regular supercar, know that it's much more momentous than it appears. It has lightweight seats, carbon fiber roll bars, and new lightweight forged wheels. Power is up to 611 horsepower to rip you up to speed, and its massive carbon ceramic brakes bring you back down again. Interestingly, Audi's famous Quattro all-wheel drive is absent in all 333 special editions. Instead, you get rear-wheel drive, complete with 7 levels of adjustable rear axle slippage. Engineers played with the aerodynamics as well, making this the most track-focused, lightest, most agile, and most hardcore version of a production R8 ever. It just looks like this thing took a wrong turn on the racetrack and ended up on the street. Most important of all is the fact that this is Audi's final V10 supercar. It's done. No more rated R Audis for you, for me, or for anyone else. There is one more Audi or Lamborghini with the Huracan STJ doing a farewell tour, but after that, it's time to say goodbye to the V10 powered supercars forever. Let's back up a bit. When the second generation R8 hit showroom floors in 2015 for the 2016 model year, the energy surrounding it was through the sunroof. The first car was, well, badass enough for Iron Man, and the new version needed to be even better than the original. Ironically, unlike the Iron Man sequels. Fight me in the comments. I don't care. Anyways, the second gen R8 was literally a completely new car, using an entirely new platform and parts that were shared with the also all-new Lamborghini Huracan, aka the Influencer Mobile. Ugh. And when eyes first were laid on it at the 2015 Geneva Motor Show, the R8 shocked us all with styling choices much more angular and angry looking than the old, soft, sexy shape of the first gen. Still, the design, well, it worked. Its active aero, giant bulging side vents, and even bigger trapezoid grills stayed true to the Audi's design language. And for all intents and purposes, the new R8 served beautifully as Audi's bright light in the sky. But where the real magic happened was underneath all that sheet metal, where it sat. The Audi, and yes, Lamborghini 5.2-liter V10 that defined the automotive soundtrack of the 2010s and propelled both supercars to insane speeds. I won't even begin to touch on how well this power plant takes boost. Let's just say 4-figure horsepower is only a phone call and a credit card swipe away, and you'll terrorize literally every car on this planet. The regular V10 made 540 horsepower, whereas the 2017 R8 V10 Plus version turned it all the way to 11 with 610. This rolling piece of art is one that we will remember from this generation. And yes, sometimes it was faster than your angels could fly. And real quick, we have 2 limited edition tees. The first is the R8 Gives Zero F***s tee, one of my faves, and the second is You Need Money for a Lambo tee. Both are awesome, linked in the first pinned comment, and go snag them before they're gone. When journalists first drove this beast, they nearly shized their lederhosens. Because even though Audi claimed an extremely quick 3.2 second 0 to 60, that V10 Plus, they were recording numbers like 2.6. That's as fast as a $1.1 million McLaren P1, and it keeps up with a $1.2 million quad turbocharged Bugatti Veyron. And it's all thanks to a little something called Audi Quattro, a technology that has become synonymous with the term all-wheel drive itself. Granted, Audi kind of had a head start with the all-wheel drive thing because, well, you know, all of that. Like, all of that. The final main ingredient for Audi's recipe included a wicked fast dual-clutch 7-speed transmission, mostly in favor of the executives who wanted to sell ridiculously quick acceleration figures and lap times, a tale as old as time and one we still can't escape till this day. But trust me when I say that it doesn't take away from the character of this supercar. The Audi R8 made people smile when talking about Audi again. And not just reliability horror stories. It put Audi on kids' bedroom posters for the first time since the Sport Quattro in the 80s. But most important of all, the second-gen R8 was a good car. It could rip out the corners faster than most Ferraris and stay neutral at high speeds better than almost anything on the road, all while providing its drivers with one of the most tasteful supercar interiors we have ever seen. It, along with its predecessor, were in a way the first truly daily drivable supercars ever. It worked just as well on the street and in the daily commute as it did on the racetrack. It was comfortable, beautiful, and above all else, reliable. It never looked out of place when parked next to a Ferrari or Lamborghini, and you could count on the thing to actually work every single time you wanted to take it for a drive. Add in the fact that maintenance and repairs were far less expensive than pretty much every other exotic car it competes with, and it's not hard to see why the R8 was such a massive success for the brand. It was a full-on supercar without any of the usual supercar drawbacks. It does all beg the question though, how exactly did this superhero of a sports car emerge from a brand that meant nothing more than upper middle class transportation?
You have to remember, the Audi we have today wasn't exactly always like this. The German brand was, well, extremely calculated in their approach to the car industry. Since the 80s, Audi has been known for building high-quality sedans and luxury coupes that could be optioned as more performant variants with turbochargers and electronic fuel injection and advanced all-wheel drive for the time. And of course, like everyone knows, they went balls to the wall with the Sport Quattro. But for the most part, when you thought of Audi's performance cars, they were relatively tame compared to the kind of diabolical monsters that AMG or BMW M was pushing out those days. What you might not have known, though, is Audi has a long and storied history of building world-beating race cars. There was the Type D in 1938 that revolutionized suspension design. The 200 Trans Am that was so good, it got all-wheel drive and non-American engines banned from SCCA racing. Or of course, the V8 DTM from 1990 that was the first car to win back-to-back DTM titles. Not to mention everything they had accomplished with Group B. But right when Audi's sport division was riding high and taking names with their then unbeatable turbocharged quattro-powered hardware, public interest in the company was at an all-time high, but unfortunately, not because they were winning races or building genuinely competitive and innovative production cars, but instead because of a little thing called unintended acceleration.
For years now, the company that makes Audis has had to defend its cars against claims that they suddenly speed up out of control with disastrous results.
But that's a story for another time. What you need to know is that it was a huge setback for the company. But by the 90s and certainly the early 2000s, Audi had managed to claw their way back to take the fight straight to Mercedes and BMW's front doors. Two companies which were both dabbling in the next level of automotive development, the supercar. Mercedes was teaming up with McLaren to do the wildly fast SLR, and BMW found themselves on the cutting room floor with McLaren's F1 project, which used a BMW-sourced V12. And it wasn't just them who were leaving Audi in the dusty old room of luxury cars. Ferrari came firing out of the gates with the Enzo. Porsche was soon to reveal the shrieking Carrera GT, and Aston Martin changed the game with their new V8 Vantage. Not to mention any of the other awesome firepower coming from America. It was a beautiful time to be a car enthusiast, but while we were all drooling over the Aston Martin's curves, Audi was in panic mode. It needed a halo car, something to personify the Four Rings as an actual player in the upper echelon of automaking, and not just a group of Germans who like to play in the dirt. Luckily, they had a few pretty strong jumping off points. See, the idea of a mid-engine supercar wearing an Audi badge wasn't exactly a new thing. There were the Quattro Spider and Avis concepts in the early 90s, their parent company Volkswagen's W12 Nardo concept in 1997, and the record-breaking Audi R8 Le Mans race car. This thing was unstoppable on the racetrack, folks. It won 63 of the 79 races it entered over just 6 years, and proved that Audi knew a thing or two about blisteringly quick mid-engined machines. Enter Frank Lamberti, the man who Audi charged with designing their new Halo car. Frank was hyped about this project from the start. I mean, who in their right mind would turn this job down? Well, maybe me, because, I'm not an engineer, and this was no easy feat. He had to take the strictly functional and rigid Le Mans R8 and turn it into a softer and, more importantly, functional and appealing street car. At the 2003 Frankfurt Auto Show, Audi would unveil Lamborghini's masterpiece, a concept that is known as one of the single best-looking supercars in modern history, the Le Mans Quattro.
Dieser Hattrick muss natürlich gefeiert werden. Mit der Studie Le Mans Quattro beschenkt.
It had a 5-liter twin-turbocharged V10, derived straight from the Audi R8 race car, and of course, Quattro all-wheel drive. It hit the public like a taser with its wide mouth, first of its kind LED signature headlamps, which, fun fact, the individual LEDs on the Gen 1 R8's headlamps signify the number of Le Mans 24-hour victories of the R8, and of course, the now iconic side blades. It stunned everyone who laid eyes on it.
And I don't think it's a particularly good-looking car. It's not balanced properly.
Okay, almost everyone. In extremely rare fashion, Audi kept the conceptual design almost entirely unchanged when the green light was given to unleash this beast to the streets in 2007. It retained the concept's lightweight aluminum space frame, and the build sheets had words like magnesium and carbon fiber strewn throughout. But one thing that did change was its name. Avis and Type 42 and Quattro Spider were all names that were thrown around. But to pay homage to its Le Mans roots, it was to be badged simply the Audi R8.
As soon as this car was released to the public a year later, its cool factor was undeniable. And I mean, it didn't hurt that Will Smith drove a similar looking car in iRobot. Or again, that Tony Stark himself chose the R8 as his daily driver. Already, this car was being skyrocketed into the hearts and minds of millions. But there were a few key changes that made this production version a bit different from the concept. First up, and most importantly, Audi did the most German thing ever and scrapped the savage twin-turbo V10 for a more subtle and reliable naturally aspirated 420 horsepower 4.2-liter V8. The same one you got in the RS4. And fun fact, the first-gen R8 is actually internally coded as the Type 42 because of the V8's displacement. Just something to chew on. But even though the V8 was smaller than the V10, it was magic. It revved at 8,700 RPM and made one of the best noises I have ever laid my ears on. And with either that shiny little gated shifter, clack clack, or the single clutch automated manual, which kind of looks like a manual shifter, but it's not, it made sure Ferrari knew that they were coming after them. It was so good that when my buddy Clarkson drove it,
I'm completely sold. As far as I'm concerned, this car is almost without fault.
and the truth is, so was I. I personally owned an R8 for a couple of years, and I gotta tell you guys, I absolutely loved it. Yeah, I did some stupid things in it, like put a bike rack on it, underglow to really make this thing stand out, and it even was my wedding car. Okay, maybe getting married with it wasn't stupid, but I used it every day because it was the ideal everyday supercar. And if you want to learn how to buy cars like a pro, check out our free workshop down below. I used the exact strategies to buy that R8 and make money driving it for 18 months. A year after the launch of the R8, Audi surprised the world at the 2008 Detroit Auto Show by rolling out a bi-turbo diesel version with a V12 engine and 493 horsepower and 738 foot-pounds of twist on tap. Audi was going a little poco loco. I mean, with two turbos, you could crank up that boost on the four rings and beat everybody, which is exactly what Audi did on the racetrack. See, the diesel R8 concept wasn't that far-fetched if you know about this car, the 2006 R10 Racer, the first diesel race car to ever win the 24-hour de Le Mans. Unfortunately, the concept never came to fruition, but hey, the motor, it was actually in a production Q7 later down the line, so there is that. In 2009 though, the R8 would receive its medallion, the piece de renaissance. The 5.2-liter, 525 horsepower V10, which was only 27 horses less than the Gallardos. I want to get something straight that everyone gets wrong about this engine. Popular lore will tell you that this V10 was taken from the Lamborghini Gallardo LP560-4 and that Audi just did the cheap move and took Lambo's work because they shared a parent company. Wrong! It was Lamborghini who actually took and massaged the V10 from the old Audi S6. So the R8 uses a true Audi engine with some Lamborghini parts bolted on. The R8, with its new V10, couldn't stay off the track for long. And in 2009, Audi entered the scary-looking R8 LMS race car into GT3 racing, where to this day, it is still successfully competing in various leagues. The first gen also finally went topless with the Spider version. And that's with a Y, not an I. That's pretty wild, but not as wild as the R8 GT, which came out in 2011 and was the most hardcore street-legal Audi in the company's history. It dropped 220 pounds from the base car and added 34 horsepower. Engineers tacked on suspension upgrades, an aero package, and bigger brakes. After all was said and done, the total of GTs produced was only 666? And finally, in 2014, we received the R8 V10 Plus. Not quite as batshit crazy as the GT, but it's the paradigm of what the first gen was all about. It received a power bump from 525 to 550 horsepower, retuned suspension, and a slight cosmetic refresh as the cherry on top of this German cake. Audi had done it! The R8 had forced the rest of the Supercar Supreme to stand up and take notice, and it brought droves of customers to Audi showrooms to buy any number of their more pedestrian cars that shared similar styling cues. But as you know, the R8 story doesn't end there. Fast forward to today, where the Audi R8 is 100% canceled. Can't order one, the factory sits idle, and the last one, it's already been built. Audi has killed off the legendary Halo car in favor of, you guessed it, a fully electric lineup. Jesus, how many more amazing cars can I mourn? But here we go, I guess. First it was the Evo, then the Camaro, then the Challenger, the 720S, the Stinger, the Chrysler 300, the Ferrari F8, the Jeep Renegade? I mean, how can I live without the Jeep Renegade? But now, it's the R8. It's the car that, 15 years ago, put Audi squarely in the center of conversation surrounding desirable vehicles. It showed us what a true performance all-wheel drive car could be, and continued to do so while most others got electric motors and batteries. It's dead, folks, and as far as we can tell, Audi has no plans to bring back the R8, at least not with its rightfully combustion-powered Fury. So, join me in a moment of silence and see if you can hear the distant cry of a 5.2-liter V10. The truth is, the R8 nameplate will most certainly live on. I can almost guarantee that if it does, it will be wearing a little e-tron badge, which leaves my heart a little heavy. But on the other hand, the potential for what the next car could be has me more than excited. Like it or not, EVs are performance fiends. And if we're gonna be forced to accept them, there are certainly worse ways to go EV than behind the wheel of what's gotta be the greatest car the brand with the 4 rings has ever built. The very last R8 rolled off the production line in March of 2024, and with it, Audi released a little video that was titled The Last Lap, paying homage to the car with a message at the very end that simply says, "An icon lives forever." The age of the V10 supercar is over, guys, but that doesn't mean that we can't look back and celebrate that it's an age that even happened in the first place. But there's one question that we have to answer here. If Lamborghini never built the Gallardo, would the R8 even exist? I want to touch on the 800-pound raging bull in this room. I mean, is the R8 just a baby Lambo? Well, yes and no. See, the Lamborghini Gallardo, introduced as the little V10 screamer in 2004, is something that we can all thank Volkswagen for. Yes, the VW Group purchased Lamborghini in 1998 and already owned a majority share of Audi. And Volkswagen knew one of the only products missing from their portfolio was an entry-level supercar to compete with the Ferrari 360 and the Porsche 911. Remember, guys, this was Ferdinand Piëch at his absolute peak.
Ferdinand Karl Piëch.
But story for another time. The project began around 1999, and the Gallardo was officially unveiled at the Geneva Motor Show in 2003. Objectives were to make the car reach a broader market that their ultra-high-performance supercar offerings like the Diablo and later the Murcielago just couldn't reach. And above all, to go and sell like hell. In 2004, this new baby bull was the hottest supercar this side of the sun. The main selling point was that it was a sexy Italian-skinned supercar with a reliable German power plant. AKA, it looked like a runway model and had the reliability of a German tank. The best of both worlds. And the even-firing 10-cylinder has a sound that should be reserved strictly for the F1 track. In its 10-year run, 14,022 examples were built and sold, meaning the Gallardo easily set the record as the most sold Lamborghini of all time. Today, we know the Lamborghini Urus is just a souped-up Audi RS Q8. But their first collab that was a match made in heaven was the Gallardo turned R8. The Gallardo was built on the Volkswagen Group sports car platform, and so it made sense to repurpose it into a budget-friendly Audi supercar. The R8 engine, a V8 already in production and used in the RS4, was incredible, but made it inferior in performance and sound to the Gallardo, which was exactly the point. For shoppers that couldn't quite justify the Lamborghini price tag, or wanted something that flew a bit under the radar, the Quattro-equipped gated manual 4-ring special was the only answer. It was the Miata of supercars. Starting at a measly $109,000 with a manual transmission, it was significantly cheaper than the Lambo or a well-equipped 911. The R8 allowed Audi to enter the supercar market segment, and by positioning itself below the Gallardo in terms of price and performance, it avoided direct competition with Lamborghini while the Volkswagen Group gained an even larger market share of supercar buyers. Yes, it was a smash hit, which made the suits at Volkswagen very, very happy and very, very rich. The development of the Audi R8 with the influences from the Lamborghini Gallardo is a prime example of how shared resources and knowledge within an automotive group can lead to a creation of distinctly branded vehicles that satisfy different market niches while efficiently building on common technological and engineering foundations. Gah, I love the R8. Don't you? Which of the 2-generation R8s would you own if you could? I'd probably spring for the first gen with the manual and the V10. Let us know down below and make sure to like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell because we got a bunch more videos like this coming every single Thursday. Thank you all so much for watching. Go check out all the Death of Legends up here or whatever YouTube recommends you watch next down here. I'm Brad. This is Ideal. See you next week and promise me one thing. Keep living the ideal lifestyle.